have a special relationship with this film. Think about this. I was watching CNN while waiting for the ball to drop on New Year's Eve. My father told me that Netflix just came out with a reboot sequel of the classic film, Sharkboy and Lavagirl. I quickly shifted over to the prison app that was Netflix to continue to serve my sentence. There, I found the poster for the film, and that's when I knew there was absolutely no way this film would be good. Let's just say I'm never wrong. So We Can Be Heroes is a movie that has no relation to the song We Could Be Heroes. You would think it does, but it really doesn't. And I don't know why they chose such like a confusing title that was overused, but whatever. It's a 2020 film that filled me with more rage than it probably should have. We should probably start at the beginning. So, The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl was a 2005 film that I personally really liked. It was made by Robert Rodriguez, and you probably remember that name from the classic Spy Kids series that contained 3, and only 3, films. I'm pretty confident in saying that it spawned dialogue and story on a level the human brain can't fully comprehend.
Somebody ring the dingster!
Yeah, so they obviously had to do it again, this time with, Jacob, pre-Twilight, and George Lopez. This brings us to Sharkboy and Lavagirl. If you go on Wikipedia, they'll describe this film as a fantasy superhero film. And I don't think that's true. I don't know how you would describe it correctly, but that doesn't seem right. So, Sharkboy and Lavagirl takes place inside the fever dream of a boy named Max. The entire film is basically moving from one place in Max's dream world to another. They usually are meant to signify, places, people, events, or things in his life. You'd probably think that seems like a straightforward concept, but it's not. It's really not. In all honesty, if you didn't see this film when you were younger, you're most likely not gonna like it. I have so much nostalgia for it that I can see past its flaws, and yes, I know, there are a lot of them.
He ruined my dream journal! I did not! Mr. Electric, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled!
You're in my class, not the other way around. I know everything, and you know nothing. At the end of class, both of you will report to the principal's office. With your parents!
I'm so sorry. I'm a liar. This film is a masterpiece, like a complete masterpiece, and that really raises the question, why would Netflix try to replicate it? Money. The answer is money. Okay, so the movie begins with the protagonist giving us some pretty bad opening narration that really doesn't make sense if you think about it for too long. So, this movie is basically a Kids Bop version of Young Justice, meaning we have to introduce this world's version of the Justice League. For some reason, their team's name is Heroics, and why? Trust me when I say this is not the last of the weird character naming choices in this movie. I don't know who was on the naming team, but please stop. Two of the heroes of this world have some poorly performed dialogue. It basically tells us that they're about to check out a disturbance. The Superman type one goes up into space where they can still talk to each other for some reason. And I promise you, it's not comms. It's not comms. You can literally see that they're just like straight up talking to each other. I find it funny, but I also hate it. So the blonde one sees a lot of alien ships on the horizon and decides to take a selfie. So I hope you can tell that this is meant to be a film for the new generation. And I'm so happy this guy gets what he deserves immediately after by, being slapped out of the sky. And that's the opening. I guess it was just meant to introduce the aliens, but it wasn't that attention grabbing since you didn't see any of like the main characters, and you just got one piece of information for that entire scene. So pretty poor use of time. After that, we formally are introduced to our main character. Her name's Missy, and she gets up in a very expensive looking room that has every single light on. The curtains are open. She has little string lights on her bed, and I'm like, who's this crazy girl? Who just has everything on in the morning? You don't turn the lights on until you're basically out the door. So, yeah, she's insane right off the bat. When Missy gets to her mirror, there are like two shirts hanging off the side. And she says the black one with the cute little skull on it says, "Leave me alone." And I really don't know how cutthroat elementary school is, to the point where if you wear a black shirt, it's a statement to everyone that says, "Don't come near me." But what do I know? What do I know? Missy heads downstairs where she finds her dad dealing with eggs for the first time in his life, and they watch the news where the guy from before, who's named, I'm not kidding, Miracle Guy, was injured from the fight with the aliens. Turns out that Missy's dad's also a part of this team, and for some reason he promised her not to go back. Missy's dropped off at school where I think they try to show it's her getting bullied, but they do it in this bizarre way that has me asking if they know what, like, school is. Like, if they've ever seen a school. Ever. At school, during what I assume to be recess, there some kids who had this ball get stuck in a tree, and we just go right into it. So what I assume happened is that they asked Missy for help, and they just stand there and ask her to use powers that she doesn't have. I don't know how long Missy's known them or how long they've known Missy, but they know her dad's a superhero, but they don't know she doesn't have powers. It's very strange. I think this was meant to be for the audience only, but it doesn't make sense. After Gravity does his job and gets the ball down, the kids go back to playing, and Missy just watches them play, and she gets kind of upset. Why though? Just go play with them. It's like they were all talking to you and they didn't seem to really dislike you for not being able to get the ball down. It came down anyway. If she really wanted to play with them, she just had to join in. They were literally comfortable enough to go up and talk to her. When you're in school, you don't do that. You just go play with people. You don't have to be formally invited. And even if they did say no, if she asked to join in, it only proves to the fact that she's not good at making friends. It could only benefit the plot. What? After that, 2 agents that work for the Hero Organization pick up Missy from school. They head to the Heroics office where Miss Quantico makes an appearance. I saw her, turned to my mother, and said that she was most definitely the villain. So Miss Quantico takes Missy to a room with the other superhero kids. In a move that is, what I can honestly say, smart. You win with the kids of the heroes to get into danger because they could be used as, like, leverage. So, since they made a smart move, they obviously had to make it stupid in some way. They literally just left these powered kids in a room with no supervision or, cameras. So, of course, when the kids are left on their own, they start partying it up. One of them brought paper in just to throw it, even though everyone was working on an iPad. Everyone was using their powers in weird ways. Or, my favorite thing they were doing, sitting quietly in a corner, waiting for their turn to speak. A boy in a wheelchair goes over to Missy, who's looking quite upset that everyone's having fun with their powers. For some strange reason, the boy's named Wheels. So, kinda ableist. They say that he's in a wheelchair because his legs are too strong for his body to handle. It's weird phrasing. But I think that they meant that, his feet are too weak for his legs. But it's kind of confusing because at first glance, if someone says your legs are too strong, you'd be like, isn't your leg below your torso? So what? But whatever. Since, he's in a wheelchair, he has to be the smart one. Just all part of that trope. He begins to introduce Missy to everyone, giving you the kind of impression that everyone in the classroom kind of knows each other pretty well, but throughout the movie their relationships kind of shift depending on how the writer feels in the moment. Each character gets a little intro, telling you about them and their powers. The names are, what I will say, not very creative. There's a boy called Noodles because he can stretch, a boy named Facemaker because he can change his facial appearance, a girl named Acapella, master of autotune. There are these twins named Fast Forward and Rewind, and I bet you can't guess what their powers are. There's a boy in a time warp named Slow-Mo. Apparently he's going super fast, but he's stuck in this kind of bubble where everyone sees him going slow. It seems like a pretty cool concept, but they never delve into it. We go over to a little girl. Her name's Guppy. She's the daughter of Sharkboy and Lavagirl. Let's not get to the logistics of that, but why is their daughter a hydrokinetic? I think it would make more sense if she had earth-based powers, if anything, but like lava and like shark do not equal water. Then we reach a character I think is meant to be the opposite of Missy. The character's name's Wildcard, and he's meant to have like every power while Missy has no powers. He also is supposed to be the leader of the team while Missy has no friends. I honestly don't believe the contrast was made enough to matter. I can like pick out that stuff easily, but like your average kid watching this is not gonna understand it. Also, Wildcard's only time of being the leader is when he says he's the leader. There's no effort beyond that to make it clear that even if he's a bad leader, they make no effort to show that he even wants to be a leader, besides like sometimes saying, hey, I'm in charge. And that's it. So, it's weird. There's one last character. Her name's Oho. She has the ability to draw pictures of people that are not in this movie. So what I think happened was that they had the plan of what they were going to do, like how to set up the scenes and the drawings, and they had the drawings pre-made. But the kids they ended up casting in these roles didn't look like the drawing she drew, because one of them had a kid with red hair, and I looked around confused the first time because I didn't know which character had red hair. So I thought that was like a weird choice. Like, why didn't they just have them done again? They weren't that complex of drawings. And later I think they got the drawings right, so they still had the person working on the pictures. It was just a weird thing that they chose not to fix. After all the introductions are made, they all sit down and watch the news, where the newscaster acts like they're an announcer for a fight. They introduce the characters and talk about some random drama happening like it's a sports event. I'll say I personally don't like this choice, but in this like hyper dramatized universe, I think it makes narrative sense for the newscasters to be extra. There's this big fight with all the parents versus the aliens, and we cut to Missy, who pretends like she doesn't know her dad's out there for no reason. Why would she be in the safe room if she didn't know this already? Then the most tragic thing happens. One by one, their parents are captured, and you can just see the terror on these children's faces after all the adults are killed. Missy calls her dad on her bracelet. Her dad tells her he's the leader, and the leader has to lead by example. And he shows this beautiful lesson by dying last after everyone else already went. What a dummy. Then Mr. Lemonade Mouth comes onto the TV to give us some stellar political commentary for all the kiddies to enjoy. Missy tells everyone that Oho's drawing told her that aliens are on their way to attack them. For some strange reason, the Magic Boy's like, no, we're not going. And everyone's like, what? And he's like, I have a black shirt on, so you have to deal with it. And Missy's like, I have a black shirt on too. And then he's like, touche. Then everyone just goes along with Missy's plan. The face boy does a cringe, and they call the guards inside, where Water Girl fights people with a little hint of the best song ever played in the background as she does that. It's great. I was listening hard, but the only other place I would say I kind of heard music from the original movie was when they first showed Guppy's powers. But besides that, they don't really use it, and it's like, why waste it here? This isn't even a big fight scene. They're just escaping. But whatever. The little girl beats up the 3 guards while Missy just kind of stands there, and when they mess up, the Time Twins just fix it. Yeah. Eventually they escape a building and board onto a bus. They choose to tell us now that there's a force field around the building that the bus has to stop at, and I'm wondering, how can the aliens break in? I mean, it makes sense that, spoiler alert, Miss Quantico is later revealed to be an alien, but they never bring that up at any point, so why include the force field at all? The auto-tune master, as I said before, has the ability to make things float, so they decide to make the entire bus fly to safety. She says here that she doesn't know how to steer the bus, even though a few seconds ago she can be seen perfectly able to move some guards into the shape of a staircase. It doesn't really matter, but why would they bring that up? In order to get to a location, they have the stretchy boy wrap his arms around a light pole, and it bothered me how many times he wrapped his arm around it because it looked like it was getting on my nerves. Like, I was freaking out because it took so long and I was getting stressed from it. The Autotune girl says she can't hold her breath for that long once they're on their way. This doesn't stop them from making it to their location though. Usually a scene like this is meant to show how powerful characters have limits on their ability, or it will, set back the plot a bit. Here it's just used as, like, I guess a joke because they land in the middle of Missy's grandma's gazebo at her house. They all sit down and have a talk where they're trying to work as a team, and Magic Boy tells the grandma that he's the leader of the group, but for absolutely no reason, the grandma just shuts him down and says that Missy has to be the leader. It's like, why though? Missy hasn't proven herself to be good at anything besides saying she doesn't have friends. It's not even shown that she wants to be a leader. I'm just starting to wonder if maybe Missy's dad was chosen to be a leader for a reason other than his great ability of letting everyone die before he dies too. Just a thought. Anyway, they proceed to montage wrong. This is the scene that really made me want to make this video. Like, how do you get a montage wrong? One of the best montage scenes I can think of was the Disney Mulan movie. The first Disney Mulan movie. Not the remake. God, not the remake. So Mulan starts off, not knowing anything about how to fight in the war, and it ends her in finding her own ways of overcoming those certain challenges while an epic song plays in the background. I mentioned this so you all know what I use as a reference because it's pretty obvious this montage takes a similar approach, except they do it backwards. It starts out with the kids working pretty well together, then it ends in them messing up at no fault of anyone's, honestly. I'm not saying a film can't, do a backwards montage and see how throughout time, how it progresses, they're getting worse and worse. I'm just saying this film doesn't know how to do that correctly. There's this thing happening that makes me wonder why they're even talking about teamwork. Throughout the entire montage, 3 characters literally just opt out of training and just sit and watch. There's the future drawing girl, the wheelchair boy, and even our main character. I will say, if they didn't want to stage a form of training for the wheelchair kid, they could have had him do something important in the meantime. Isn't he supposed to be the smart one? They say he's doing some tracking, but every time you look at him, he looks like he's just looking down at his iPad in case the teacher looks, so it looks like he's doing work. On the other hand, you can't even say the future girl doesn't need to train because they didn't want to stay training for her. There's no reason for her to be sitting out except for the reason I'll mention later. They don't even show her doing anything else. She just sits there and watches everyone. She's not even drawing. I'll be honest here. Oho and the wheelchair kid sitting out doesn't bother me as much as Missy sitting out bothers me. I just don't think the movie understands what the word leadership means. You'll see this even more throughout the film, but Missy will just sit back and tell the kids to do things while not trying to do any work. Earlier when they were escaping from Miss Quantico, Missy just told everyone things that they could have easily figured out without her help. During the training at Grandma's house, Missy takes over, and I'm wondering why. Missy doesn't know anything the other kids don't know. She's not a good fighter from what I've seen, and honestly, she isn't shown to be very nice with the other kids. I don't see them getting along. That being said, why would anyone listen to her? I don't even like the character of Wildcard, but why would the other kids not like him? I don't know how long they've known each other, but what I do know is the kids knew Wildcard longer than they knew Missy. Even if they didn't like him as the leader, they most certainly would not accept Missy without her proving herself first. They even said Wildcard was their leader. They introduced him as the leader and everyone just agreed on it. Eventually, they have to show her grandma telling her to do some work, so Missy tries to do a tightrope, but immediately gives up. She's asked to do one thing and then gives up, and this is just bad in general, but they show, like, a few seconds later, Wildcard, who's meant to be, like, her opposition to be leader, doing the tightrope without complaint. Why would they show that? There's no need. Then this girl gets fed up with the kids not working as well as I guess she wants them to. What is this? These kids would not follow her lead if she's being such a hypocrite. Some garden guy says a line that chips away a bit of my soul. Just listen to it. Just listen to it.
They're rocking out.
Why would they put that in a film for anyone to see? No one needed to see that. No one wanted to see that. But they wrote it in there anyway. They put it in there. They put this in the film. Right after that, Missy gets fed up with the kids not working as well as she wants them to, I guess. So she just quits. Then, cut to the adults arguing. This made me very upset the first time because I'm like, they didn't just reveal the adults being alive in such a blasé way. They didn't just cut to them. I tried to look back in the film and I was like, did they show them earlier? No. They just revealed that the parents were alive, even though the audience thought they were dead, as if we knew they were there the whole time. It's so bizarre from how this point forward, they keep cutting back and forth between the kids and the adults. I guess trying to make a parallel, but their situations are completely different. One, the adults are arguing for no reason, and two, the kids haven't been arguing. Like, the closest they had to a fight was between Missy and Wildcard on who got to be leader, but that was barely a confrontation because Grandma just, like, shut it down. After that, we cut back to Missy sitting down on a bench, wondering how she could possibly lead this team. Her grandma comes out and tells her, your parents did it, so you have to do it too. I'm kidding. Half kidding. What her grandma said was her mom was a leader and she didn't have any powers, but that doesn't make any sense. You see, just because your parents overcame something with like a disadvantage doesn't mean you automatically get into that same position without working just because they did it. That's a little thing called nepotism. Eventually we have to leave and go into a tunnel where they have this weird exchange. So the water girl says, I wish there were lights in here. Yeah, me too. If only there were lights in this dark tunnel. If only this wasn't a well-lit tunnel with plenty of string lights that are obviously visible. If only. I think they just wanted Missy to be holding Oho's iPad, but it makes the character seem so dumb. They're like, I can't find the lights on the wall at every single inch. Why? Okay, so I'm going to rush through this last portion pretty fast because this is where I would say the movie takes a bit of a halt and it started to bore me. While they're in the tunnel, they start to discuss some superhero outfits. They say that their parents wearing their big flashy costumes makes them too much of a target and that they need to start blending in. By blending in, they mean they didn't want to get the kids superhero costumes. Missy discovers something. We don't know what it is. Slow-mo decides to use his powers because throughout the entire film, I feel bad for this kid, but throughout the entire film, they don't like slow him down in scenes. They just ask the kid to walk pretty slow and hope the audience doesn't notice. So while he's going really slow, some aliens are about to like go and attack him. The little girl does a pretty good scream. Honestly, I like it. Then the singing girl starts to sing as Slow-mo is about to die. After he gets on the ship, the kids with the black shirts on have a little moment. Then the wheelchair boy decides to do some work. He doesn't do it right because the little girl has to step in and do it for him. The magic boy becomes a toaster. For some reason, I like this set, but it's way too purple. The president's the villain. Oh my god. Miss Quantico's the villain. Oh my god. Miss Quantico goes up to the kiddies and says, "You're fighting just like your parents." Even though they weren't. They haven't had one fight. Honestly, they keep saying that the kids are acting just like the parents. They haven't fought throughout the entire film. Like, the closest they came to was like those little altercations between Missy and Magic Boy, but those are like not them fighting as much as one of them wants to be the leader. Then Miss Quantico's like, "The twins are too powerful with each other. Make them stand 2 inches away from each other." It's so bad. Then the adults see a hooded thing put into the room with them, and they start to act really dumb and start to do stupid things, like trying to fight it or try to look from underneath the coat. Turns out it was the grandma the whole time, and she bullies everyone for being dumb. Then the President Lemonade Mouth is being dumb as well. The cell, I realized now, the kids are in, looks too much like a ship. It looks just like a ship. I said this. My brother was like, "No, they're in a cell." And I'm like, "No, they just put them in a ship." And it took me so long to realize that they actually were in a ship. It was like, at first I was like, that's really dumb of them just to leave the kids in their own little ship. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did do that. Missy starts to bully everyone, so Guppy can steal their tears and make a key to get them out of the cell they're in. The adults are still pretty dumb, doing some dumb things like not figuring out how to get out of the cell. They give us a message about, making things better with the next generation, which is kind of ironic because the film is for the next generation and arguably worse. The magic boy does a stupid that is meant to be a stupid, but is still stupid. Missy makes the twist of the movie pretty obvious. The last half of the film, most of the characters don't do anything, honestly. Like acapella, for the first part, she was like out there singing, but she used up her character's only purpose. And she sings a theme song once, but besides that, she has no other relevance. Neither does anyone else unless the plot demands they go in the forefront for some type of character payoff that wasn't earned. The kids have a fight and Missy doesn't do anything. Missy doesn't do anything again. Why would the film does the film want me not to like her? Does the film want me not to like her? She gets ready to fight, she puts her fists up, but the second they start fighting, she puts them down immediately. She keeps doing that throughout the film. Then acapella comes in, and out of everyone, she's my favorite when it comes to fight scenes. She does the best fights. She does a weird scream when she fights. I think the director thought it'd be funny. But yeah, I like her fights. Random question I had. The aliens walking around the ship are in a humanoid form. They have tentacles protruding out the back of their necks, but why human? Why human form? Why wouldn't they just look like aliens? I don't know. There are cuffs on the ceiling. I guess everywhere in the ship there are just cuffs hanging from the ceiling. And the aliens in human form try to cuff the kids. But the twins do something where they both work together to rewind time. I think that would just stop time. Honestly, if fast forward and rewind were using their powers at the same time, I think that just stopped time, but this film honestly doesn't understand how time works. Earlier in the film, Magic Boy and Face Boy split off from the group because it was meant to be a fight that seemed very, very forced. And it turned out that when those two split up from each other, Face Boy was pretending to be Magic Boy the whole time. The wheelchair kid does a puzzle. Wild Card does a help. In Operation Old Buddy, Old Pal, Miss Quantico doesn't know how to walk. She hasn't known how to walk throughout the entire film, but I didn't want to say it until now. Why would they make her walk so weird throughout the entire movie? The kids explain their entire master plan. The plan doesn't really make sense, and the drawing girl makes no sense. The drawing girl turns out to be evil. Some people will say that the drawing girl being evil was a big twist, but it wasn't. If you look at the basic camera work and how they always linger on her, like every time they do something, I guess they want the kids to be smart, feel smart for like picking up on these obvious cues, but they keep lingering on her too long. Every time they have an interaction, she like smiles weirdly or they zoom in on her face. So it wasn't that good of a twist. Once they removed the shield, they ADR'd some cheering. I guess the kids didn't cheer loud enough because it kind of sounds like there are more kids cheering than there are actually children there. She has the ability to make her drawings like come to life, and she draws on her iPad for it, and they don't take the iPad away. They keep just fighting the monsters. And then Missy goes, "We'll hold it off," aka they'll hold it off. And it results in a pretty boring fight scene. You can see the parents, they cut away to the parents, and the parents are proud. I don't know why in my notes I just wrote "zap zap baby," but it's in the notes, so I'm gonna read it. I completely forgot why I wrote that. That seems so dumb. They have a freeze ray callback because earlier, there's actually pretty cute. I liked it. Earlier, you can see in the classroom that they have little signs up on what the kids shouldn't be doing, and freeze rays was on that list. So I believe in my soul that that was a callback to that. Okay, so I want to talk about this. I don't think this movie understands how water works, because Guppy says that she has water-based powers, but it turns out she can just move all liquids, because around this big pyramid thing that they're trying to like break into so the aliens can't take over the world or whatever, it's surrounded by like this liquid metal, and for some reason Guppy can just move that. Like, it's part of her powers, and they never like talk about it. It's just something she can do. After just telling everybody this entire time to do work, Missy decides that she has to do something to make it look like she had a character arc. So what happens is she finally does the tightrope. Noodles stretches his hand across these two planes, and Missy walks across it to lure the monsters off. She almost immediately dies, though. Like, almost immediately dies. I don't know what the lesson here was, just to sacrifice herself. That isn't what a leader is. A leader doesn't completely exist to be a sacrifice for a cause. But that's what this movie thinks it means. Acapella girl starts singing a duet with her mom, and it's the song from earlier that they keep trying to play it throughout the entire film. It's the title song. The song's called "We Can Be Heroes," and they sing it so many times. Like, so many times. I'm sick of that song. I'm sick of it. It wasn't that good of a song. So this little contraption that the wheelchair boy was working on the entire time, that they're supposed to put in the pyramid to stop the counter, is thrown into the abyss where the monsters were. And luckily it landed on this little pillar. So Stretchy Boy puts his arm down and tries to grab it, but his arm starts like right before it reaches there. So in my head, I was like, okay, so someone just has to go down there and hold on to his arm. But they don't do that. Slow-mo just jumps, and since he's in slow motion, the impact doesn't hurt him because it's dispersed. It makes scientific sense, but it doesn't make logical sense in the moment. Why would he do that? And then you must be thinking, well, how does he get out? Obviously, the Noodle Boy would just put his arm down there and help him up. But no. Wildcard appears and is just like, hey guys, I'll fly down there because my powers are working now. And it's like, why he teleports in there and to fly? Why would he not just teleport down there? He wasn't doing anything important. They just wasted like 2 minutes on nothing. The takeover still happens despite their efforts to stop it. But it turns out the takeover was really the friends we made along the way. The parents are alive. They walk out in slow motion and pose for no reason, which has you asking the question, do they know that this was a fine plan, that the aliens were friendly? Or were they just like dumb? Were they not paying attention? Because at first you would think that maybe the parents were in on it. But then you go, why were they arguing? Why would the grandma be so surprised? Why would the beginning part where the narration happens, the part that I said didn't make sense if you think about it, because if you think about it, it's like they go out and see a disturbance of some aliens and he gets hit. Why would the aliens attack him if they were on the same team from the beginning? So the parents posing here doesn't make sense. The beginning part of the movie doesn't make sense if they were in on it. That this Quantico says something about them completing the test. Whatever. It's a nice message, but this is the wrong movie for it. This doesn't show anything. And they really beat a dead horse on that message. They keep saying it over and over again. And apparently on the alien planet, the kids rule and the parents drool. Yeah. Why is Missy in charge again? I don't know. Then all the parents and the kids, they reunite, they hug. The kids start doing like handshakes with Missy. And it's like, when did they become friends? When was it like they're all buddy now? Acting like they bonded. They didn't have time to bond. They didn't even go on an adventure. They went to 2 places. And then at the end, they show us the best janitor outfits I've ever seen. They're beautiful janitor outfits, and I love them. So all in all, I think the message about kids taking over was not something this movie really tried to tell me until the last half of the film, when they sat down and they're like, oh my god, we gotta start like giving a message about something. At no other point did they really like try to show it to me. They'll say it every now and then that things get better with the next generation. Like they'll say things, but they don't show it. They say the kids are arguing. The kids don't argue. They say that things aren't going right. They never show it. Like, they're acting like I know these people. Like, I know how they work. The parents start arguing. They don't explain why. That was the movie, I guess. Wow. Now let's talk about the characters. What I'm going to do is go from least important characters to the most important. I just want to start by saying, casting-wise, I like how they have a fairly diverse cast. It's not only that the cast was very diverse, but it also felt like the minorities weren't given the short end of the stick in terms of character development, because there was no real character development for anybody. So let's start off with the parents. The heroics' only job throughout the movie was to get captured and argue. They never tell you why they're mad at each other, they just are. The blonde one literally says this.
It's more than just a down satellite. So the whole team could spring into action.
Why would he say that and then go say,
Be my true self. My true self doesn't like you. Or you. Or you.
why would he want them to get together if he supposedly hated them deep down? Just know they're the most inconsequential people in the film. They're just a goal for the children to try to get to. Okay, so I totally forgot the dad's name. I just knew he looked so much like Hawkeye. It was so confusing. I honestly thought Jeremy Renner was in this film for how much they look alike. His character's literally the most hilarious person ever. He keeps saying that he's the leader, but we never see him leading. In the beginning of the film, he said that even though he's not on the field, he's still the leader. So tell me why Miss Quantico is shown to be walking in and giving orders. He has to be told to be a leader by her. The second he was on the field, he didn't not only help, he got captured. How do you honestly say a leader leads by example and then jump into a pile of alien robots after knowing full well the rest of your team died by them? I was also very confused by his powers. I wasn't sure if he was a regular telekinetic or if he just had the ability to control like magnetic things like his swords. I don't even know why they showed he had powers if he never uses them once. He only uses them to grab a sword and then he immediately dies and just sits around the entire film. I guess he has to have powers to make it worse on Missy, but there was no need to add that in there. I know this entire film is just meant to be nostalgia bait, trust me, I know. But honestly, this is kind of gross how they treat these two characters. They were from a movie that was only really kept alive because of how funny and weird it was. Now they're being shoved into a different film that could have honestly existed without them. I felt like Netflix had this idea to make a kid's superhero film and got the rights to Sharkboy and Lavagirl, then just shoved them into the movie. Think about it. Without Sharkboy and Lavagirl being in this film, would anybody really care? I think not. These characters didn't even do anything besides sit down with the rest of the adults. But I felt like I should say something about them because they're the whole reason people are really watching. It's weird they made Sharkboy not talk throughout the entire movie. I know they couldn't get Taylor Lautner back, but they could have had a new actor say something. It just was kind of weird and took me out of the film every time he didn't say a word. One last question about them. Why do people still call them Sharkboy and Lavagirl? They are grown adults. The fact this character exists bothers me. The movie doesn't put much effort into developing anybody, but the grandma is such an unnecessary character to spend any time on. She's meant to be the old mentor person, but what it boils down to at the end of the day is her just telling Missy to tell everyone what to do. And then it's like, what was the point of having her in the film at all if she doesn't do anything besides tell someone unqualified to train the other unqualified people? They were pretty bad, obvious villains. Firstly, there were way too many kids in this film. They had so many that literally like half of them had the same powers. They also had so many people here that it was hard to know who to focus on, because they got into a situation and it's like there are 50 different ways to solve it instead of the way the kids choose to solve it. You know, there's that thing of never working with pets or kids. You know, pets and children are really hard to get to do what you need them to do in a scene. It really shows here. I know when you're acting for the first time, you feel kind of awkward, and it's this thing of not really knowing what to do with your arms or your hands. In so many scenes, it's obvious when the kids are left to do whatever. That's why you can tell when an adult stepped in to tell them how to move, because it's so calculated, because they didn't want to get it wrong. As a group, their relationship shifts were confusing. At the beginning, they were acting like they knew each other, then they pretended not to know each other's powers. It was also weird how at the movie everyone was okay with Magic Boy, like, claiming he was the leader, for them later just to turn on him for no reason. A thing I also noticed and I didn't like with the kids was how they didn't seem to have any personal friendships just between each other. Well, there was this one shown, but I'll get to that later. Besides that, they could talk to anyone and get the exact same result. There's no banter, there's no inside jokes, there's no sign that they actually like each other or know each other very well until the very end, where they all do these handshakes like they've been friends this whole time. This kid is literally not a character. He's just his powers. That's all we know about him. He can stretch. This character's entire existence is a hindrance to the entire film. I think he's meant to be a type of comedic relief, but they don't do that right. You can have a character that's funny, but you can't really have a character that is a joke, because at that point, they aren't a person as much as they're just something you cut away to when you want the ha-has, but pretend doesn't exist otherwise. And it's kind of awkward between the moments he's not being used, because it just feels like he's just there. This kid's just like standing there. I just want to add this little note. I don't know why I thought it was adorable when him and his dad hugged each other at the end of the movie. I have no reason to think that, but I thought their like fighting each other was the cutest. These two were very confusing. Early on in the film, Wheels says they don't like each other, and that's the only way we know they don't like each other. They never explain why they don't like each other. It bothers me how often there are people in this film saying that other people are fighting without showing them really fighting. When they were being attacked by the aliens on the TV, the parents were having a little spat. I guess it was meant to be like where the kids got their fighting from. It doesn't explain why the parents were arguing, and still doesn't help explain why the kids were arguing. At the end, it turns out the siblings didn't really hate each other after all. They were just being siblings. It didn't affect the plot at all. Their relationship had nothing to do. They just cut to the kids sometimes, and the girl just gave the brother some looks like, And it's like they're just being siblings. That's just how kids are. That doesn't mean they don't like each other. I also think the writer couldn't guess what the kids' parents' powers would be, because we never see them using powers. They kick a door in at the beginning, but I'm not sure what that was trying to say. I mean, do they have super strength or something? But it doesn't make sense if their kids have time-based powers. I think the writer just couldn't understand what to do with them, so they just like didn't show them using their powers at all. They're like the only parents shown not to have any powers. I feel like the only person in this movie to come close and to having a character is this person. Even that's paper thin though. I like how he'll try to place bets and gamble with the other kids. He'll be very cringy at times, but it feels like that's part of his character and that's how he is. That's why for those few seconds where he's meant to be impersonating the Magic Boy, it feels like that is him, because of the way they set up his character. And I think that one scene's the only reason why he's been having like little character moments like sprinkled throughout the film, so you could just tell something was off. For the first part of the movie, it feels like this character's gonna be more important than she ends up being. She has this moment where her powers are like maxed out, and it seems like the movie is done with her after that. She just holds the little girl's hand and sings that one song at the end. I feel bad because I honestly think this actress was wasted here. She honestly had the best fight scenes in the film, and I think if they hadn't given her the power of singing, she could have shown that ability to stage fights off more. I don't like it when they do this thing of naming a character by some disability or the way they look. I think it immediately tells you they never really wanted to flesh out this character beyond one trait. That's exactly what happens here. They say that he's smart, which we honestly don't see. Yet another example of them saying something without showing it to me. The only time when he's about to do something smart, the movie takes it away from him by saying the entire thing he did was made for children. What was the point of having this character? The movie makes it seem like any child could have done this. And I'm just sick of having disabled kids in movies having these savant-esque abilities. It's almost like the people creating these characters feel like if they have a disability, they have to make up for it by just being amazing at everything. Just make an actual character. Oh my god. I have a personal disdain for placing very young children in movies like this just to be the kid character. All of the other kids are young already, so why would you add an even younger kid into this film? All of the kids seemed kind of unsure what to do, since they had to do a lot of CGI on these powers, but hers in particular felt off because what she was doing with her hands and the effects just felt like they were in two different, like, completely separate scenes. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. What was going through everyone's minds when they all agreed that the biggest characters in the movie's child is gonna be the youngest, most useless person in the film? It makes it seem like her entire existence is just an Easter egg, just like a blink and you'll miss it. Sharkboy and Lavagirl's kids in the movie. Why would they do that? Like, I understand them not wanting their child to be the main character or whatever, but she shouldn't be like the least important one. As I said earlier, it seems like he was meant to be the opposite of Missy, but I'm not sure if it was supposed to make me think that he was unqualified to be the leader. It seems at times he just like wakes up from a coma and says, "I'm the leader," and everyone's okay with it until they're not. I also want to know why his dad was the mechanic person. Why wouldn't the Magic Boy's dad be the miracle guy? My suspicion was that the audience they were aiming for probably wouldn't understand why the brunette's dad was a blonde, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why would he have every power and his dad's the mechanic with presumably no powers at all? I was so confused. Some people may have thought her being a villain was a good twist, but those people were probably watching this movie with their brains like turned completely off. The camera really wants to make it obvious that this was for little kids. Every scene has her giving weird stares and the camera lingers on her oddly. People who didn't notice this the first time just like, I guess, missed something so obvious. At first you could excuse it as her just being a bit weird, but like Missy starts leaning towards her saying, "Oh my god, that's so sad," like planning on something. And this character's entire existence is literally just to be a hint to the kids. She's literally a hint. She's a walking hint. Why? Before we get into talking about our main character, let's have a quick conversation about powers. More specifically, time powers. When you have a character with time powers, you have to be, careful. There's a lot of science to it, and, suspension of disbelief only can be stretched so far. This movie doesn't seem like they put any research into anything, so why did they make the decision to have not only one, but 5 kids with time powers? Before you correct me, think about this. There are the obvious time twins, that's 2, the speed bubble boy, 3, Oho, 4, and on top of that, you have the boy with every power. It bothers me how they have so many kids with overlapping powers. One excuse you could have for the amount of children they put in this film is they just wanted to show off cool visual effects and powers, but they didn't even do that. It just seems clunky. If they weren't trying to cram so many kids into this, they could have had less characters that would have had more time to shine. Oh god, what to say about this character? Why does it seem like the movie wants me not to like her? It goes back to them not understanding what leadership means. Just because your family has been in charge for a long time doesn't make you a leader. It doesn't make you qualified at all. You could make the argument that it was her ideas that made her qualified, but she didn't have a single idea throughout the entire film. She was literally given pictured instructions telling her what to do. I think we were supposed to think that she was smart for discovering Oho was an alien when it was quite literally handed to her. And why was Oho playing it up that Missy was so smart for figuring something out that she drew? This movie didn't have to do this. They could have just made her find this stuff out on her own. But no, they had to make her as unlikable as they could. It seems like the message of things getting better with the next generation doesn't make sense if they keep trying to do the same thing with each generation. They keep putting the same family in charge and wonder why everything ends up falling apart and they all end up arguing. I don't want to say the actress is doing a terrible job. I just think the director and the crew could have helped her out a bit more when it came to certain things. At a lot of points in the movie, she looks like she doesn't exactly know how to portray what was written down in the script. I don't blame the actress for this at all. I think with a few more acting lessons, she'll be really good in films. But as of now, the casting director just shouldn't have casted her. There were a few kids that I felt like could have been better later if they had some help. But here, it's so confusing to me. We don't talk about casting directors enough when it comes to kids stuff. Because it's the kids don't just walk onto set and just start acting in a movie. They have to be sat down and they have to have a conversation, and the casting director chooses who's in the movie. And it seems like here there was just one kid that worked with someone before or with someone's kid, and they were like, hey, bring all your friends and we're gonna film a movie, instead of the casting director doing their job and sitting down people and finding the best talent. Unless this was the best group. In that case, my bad. How atrocious are these costumes? I mean, it feels like they just told the kids to wear whatever, but they sent some of the kids their character's name and powers, so they're wearing shirts that have something to do with them. But others are just wearing regular shirts. Who was in charge of the costumes? Who was like, you know what? No, I know this is a superhero film, and like half of the draw of superhero films is to see how creative the costumes are, but no. They're gonna wear regular shirts and pants. That's interesting. They not only made the kids not wear costumes throughout the whole movie, but they tried to give like a lazy reason why they couldn't give them costumes, saying they had to blend in. They went to space. What were they trying to blend in with? Literally what? Honestly, it's honestly just sheer laziness. Even the adults had costumes, and those looked like they were picked up at a local party city. I actually own the outfit Mrs. Vox was wearing. I'm not joking. I saw it and I was like, who was in charge of the costume department? I'm not going to give any real excuses because Netflix has the money to give them costumes. They lay hints of the music from the first film throughout Guppy's introduction and that one fight scene, but that just makes it more obvious how little personality the soundtrack has. It sounds like they googled basic superhero music and just inserted it into this film. The only time it seemed like they put effort into songs was when they made those basic pop songs. That's not saying they were good songs. It was kind of generic. Like everything in the film, I guess. That's how I'll describe it. It was disappointingly generic. What I'm gonna do is recreate this film and basically fix it. We can try to keep the base of it, but build up something that's hopefully better. So starting with our main character, hopefully in this new version of the film, she's either slightly older or a better actress and can sell her part a bit better. The plot of this film is about this new Missy, we can still keep her name, it doesn't matter, is going off to this camp that's going to teach her how to be an adult and how to get a job and prepare for the future. That's going to be the theme throughout this new film. So when she's about to leave for camp, one of her siblings is going to give her a sketchbook, and she's going to respond by saying something along the lines as, you know, I don't draw anymore. And her sibling's like, you used to be so creative. So, you know, she used to do a lot of art, but for some reason she stopped. When she boards onto the bus, and throughout the entire movie, you'll see all the kids in this camp are pretty well dressed and look like they have expensive clothes on, versus Missy, who's wearing like basically regular clothes. When she arrives at the camp, everything around her will look kind of like an old amusement park-esque thing, and the people in charge there's one person and she's wearing all white, and she's the only person wearing that color, so she can stand out. That character is basically meant to be like the guiding hand that's gonna show the kids the ways of growing up. Missy is shown throughout this new version of the film to be very antisocial. And you see that, like, when kids come to sit down near her, she tries to run away. When people go up to talk to her, she just acts really rude to them to make them leave. And she's also very, very focused on work. Throughout Missy's time there, sometimes she'll tell people her name and they'll seem to know her, or rather her dad, and she gets very upset at that and makes her even more standoffish. When it's time for her to get some assignments back that she did, all of the teachers say that her work's very uninspired and basic, which makes her get very upset because she thinks she put as much work as she could in there. So she goes back to her temporary room and throws everything around and finds that sketchbook her sibling gave her. And in a rage, she starts to sketch stuff out, and that makes her stay in the entire day. The following day, the head counselor goes into the room because she realized that Missy was missing, and she tells her that since you can't get up on your own, I guess you'll need someone else here to help you, and now you have a roommate. When the teacher leaves, the girl says, "Hi, my name's Guppy," and Missy's like, "Is that seriously your name?" And she just laughs it off and says it's an inside joke. The two of them go out to the cafeteria where Missy notices that Guppy's following too close behind her and starts trying to make her go away, but Guppy doesn't and just says, "We're gonna hang out from now on." When they go get lunch, Guppy realizes that Missy is sitting by herself, and she asks why. Missy just says, "I don't want to deal with other people. They'll just slow you down in life." After Guppy comments on how that's a really bleak way of looking at it, Missy just says, "I've learned that lesson of making too many friends before." That prompts Guppy to say, "You're too young to know that. Why are you acting this way?" They keep going back and forth with this until one girl sits down next to Missy and says, "Why are you always so weird?" And Missy was just about to run away when Guppy stands up for her and kind of gets aggressive, with the snap change in personality. When they get into a little confrontation with the other girl, Guppy punches the table and it breaks, and Missy's eyes go wide and she ushers Guppy out into the field or somewhere where no one sees him. That's when the audience learns that Guppy isn't really normal and that her parents are Sharkboy and Lavagirl, and that basically brings us into the entire plot of the film. The movie. It's about Guppy trying to leave her parents and save the world on her own, basically. But Missy's the pessimistic character that's like, there's no world to save, we only have to live in it. Throughout the entire movie, the two girls are just running around, bringing life back to the world and making it more exciting. And Missy learns that it's okay to make friends. Later, they have a conversation about how Missy used to draw a lot, but everyone around her grew up without her, making her stop doing what she liked to do. This movie would be more about Missy's personal struggle with trying to grow up too soon instead of a random superhero movie. When Guppy eventually has to go back to the dream world or whatever after their little adventure, Missy has to learn to keep that type of childhood wonder with her. And I think that would be a really nice theme for a movie. When Missy makes it home after everything's said and done with the camp, she sees a bunch of kids playing outside and having a good time, and one of them looks very similar to how Guppy looked, and it starts to show that everything that happened was definitely of Missy's imagination. And when she gets back home, it turns out her dad is just a famous writer who wrote a book about Sharkboy and Lavagirl, and that's why her dream kind of fantasy was centered around their kid. That's basically how I would rewrite the movie if I was given an opportunity. Of course, I didn't write every single detail down that I would put in there, but it'd be along those lines of more fantasy themed, because the original movie was all about dreams, and it felt like this remake was lacking in that department since they decided just to go down the basic superhero route. So I would want to stick to more of that kind of, this is just a dream world type of thing about growing up and stuff. In all honesty, if you can sit down and enjoy a bad film, that's great. My only issue is trying to take nostalgia and claim it's for the new generation without putting much effort into it for the new generation. I don't think it's an excuse to make a bad movie if the original was a bad movie. I can take off my rose-colored glasses and see that Sharkboy and Lavagirl was not a good film, but I can give it credit for having a creative plot at least. This movie just feels like I said earlier, a kid's version of Young Justice, which has me asking, who did they make this movie for? People that like the original movie are either young adults or teens around my age. When large companies like Netflix, Disney, or whatever try to remake childhood classic films, they make one of two mistakes. They either make it way too adult, or they make the reboots, like in this case, for way too young of kids. It seems like movie studios don't think teens or young adults exist when it comes to making movies for them, unless it comes to boys content. Even then, they can't help themselves sometimes for making it more adult. In this case, you obviously can't turn Sharkboy and Lavagirl into a young adult film, like as they see it, because of how cute and innocent the original was. So they had to revert into making it for even younger kids. I honestly would just like to talk about that weird trend type thing, but that's about it for this film. Thank you for watching, I guess.